Does this look familiar to you? All of you guys have seen this before. At least most of you should have seen this before, or it should look somewhat familiar to you guys. Okay? I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to figure out what this is, and then I'll tell you what it is. Okay? A few seconds. Just think for a little bit. So this is the scientific method, I believe that's what it's called, that you learn in biology class in high school. Okay, it's a process that is used to conduct experiments, develop analyses off of hypotheses, and prove if an hypothesis is legitimate or not, or valid through an experimentation process called the scientific method to validate any observation that you find or any theory or anything. Okay, the reason I'm pointing this out to you guys is because this concept applies almost exactly to trading, but replacing all the scientific stuff, but with your strategy and with your trading. And we're gonna break down in this video exactly how that makes sense and how that takes into effect. And it also kind of puts into play everything I've gone over in the entire trading blueprint series from A through Z, because all the components starting from step A to step Z is in this entire process, right? I lay out that entire process to you guys on all the step-by-step videos. And in this video, we're going to be pretty much summarizing the scientific method on how it applies to trading, and which is also going to be, coincidentally, everything I covered in the entire series. Okay, I didn't know the scientific method was kind of similar to how I apply everything I talked about in the series, but it breaks it down really, really well in a way that you guys can understand it. So this is gonna kind of put together everything you guys have seen in the past step A through Z videos, so you guys can see it all in a full video format, summarizing everything you need to know. So let's get this out of here. First things first, bro. If you guys are familiar yourselves with the scientific method, the first step usually is make an observation or ask a question and make an observation or do research behind your observation. Okay, those are generally the first three things that you're going to do. Observe, ask a question, do research. Okay, we're going to go over kind of the scientific way of it, and then we'll go over the trading way of it. Okay, observe, ask a question, do some research. Okay, once you do some research, you construct a hypothesis. Okay, so is this true? If I see this, this, and this, then this is true. This is something I want to test. Okay, you construct your hypothesis. Next, you test that with an experiment. You formulate a session where you're going to test your specific hypothesis to see if it's actually valid or not. Okay, and then you look, is this procedure working? Is my experimentation working? If it's not, then you're gonna troubleshoot the procedure. Carefully check all the steps and set it, all steps and set up. Okay, you want to go back to test the experiment, see is everything working all right? Did I set up everything right? Is everything going as it's supposed to? Okay, if not, you probably did something wrong. Okay, if yes, move on to the next step. Okay, which is analyze your data, analyze the results of your experiment, and draw conclusions from that experiment. Okay, and then of course you have share the results. Make sure if the results align with the hypothesis. If it does, and if it doesn't, then go back. It says over here, experimental data becomes background research for new future project. Ask you a question from the hypothesis experiment again. Perfect. This is exactly what I thought I was gonna say. So I didn't look at these yellow parts, but I like general idea of like what this says. But all it's saying is if the results align with the hypothesis, great. Share the results. Well, instead of sharing it, you'd use it in terms of trading. You would use it and effectively put money behind it and make money with it. Okay, but in the scientific world, you'd communicate the results, apply it, and do whatever you want with that information. And if it doesn't align with your hypothesis, what you're going to do, or partially aligns with it, what you're going to do is you're going to go back, and that's going to give you more information to formulate a new question or a new full experiment scientific project. Okay, where you're going to do all the steps from step A to step Z, ask a question, do your research, and construct a hypothesis all over again with your newly provided results from your experiment. Okay, so that's a scientific way of doing it, and you're going to keep doing that until you get the results that you want that align with your hypothesis. Okay, that's exactly how the process is going to work and how you're going to finish the process and get to your end goal result. All right, now how does this apply to trading? The big question. So let's break that down. First things first, make your observations, ask a question, and do research. Those are the first three main steps. Now, what do you observe? all of you guys in the market, I'm sure we are humans. We are pattern seeking. We have pattern seeking brains. We are creative. We use our imagination to think of stuff out of nothing. Okay, so everybody will. I'm sure you guys have watched a chart before, and I've seen that your brain starts to seek out some patterns in the price action and thinks of a potential strategy to use. If you go for 2 weeks with plain charts, with no indicators, no nothing, your brain will develop patterns. It will start to see certain patterns in the price action and want to build some strategy out of it. Okay, that initial thought that your brain has of wanting to build a rules for a strategy, or wanting to see some confirmations for as a entry rule for a strategy, is going to be your initial hypothesis. Okay, you can approach these first 3 steps by asking a question. For example, let's ask a question by, let's see, at 10 o'clock, do we always have a reversal at 10 o'clock? If so, okay, what happens if we do? Okay, what leads up to that? Okay, these 3 things lead up to that. All right, so my hypothesis is going to be, if I see this, this, and this, then I usually see a reversal at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, most of the time. Okay, that's my hypothesis, and I want to see, is this valid? Okay, next thing I'm going to do is test this with an experiment. Okay, how does that work? How are you going to test with an experiment? All right, this is not a scientific project. This is why we have backtesting. If you guys haven't watched a video on that already, go ahead and watch it. Backtesting. It's a form of experimentation, but in the trading world. You're going to go and apply your hypothesis on not just the current data you have on the current day, but experimentation across the past several days, several weeks, and several months of data. You're going to test that hypothesis and see if it actually holds up in the experimental phase that you have on your backtesting session. Okay, you're going to see what's happening. Is the procedure working? Is everything coming up? Is everything working? If not, make sure you set up everything correctly. You set up your backtesting properly. You're following your rules. You're following your criterias, and making sure you're tracking everything properly. You're tracking your 3 criteria, and you're tracking whether or not we have a reversal at 10 a.m. or not, and how much you make, and your win rate, and your risk reward, and all the other analytics, right? Which are given to you when you're looking at your backtesting analytics in the FX Replay software, which is the software I recommend, by the way, because they are literally the best backtesting software that I've seen in the game. So if the procedure isn't working, you're going to go make sure everything you did was accurate. The way you set up your experiment was accurate and you followed all the steps as you're supposed to. And if it is working, great. We're going to analyze the results of this experiment. Is everything performing the way it's supposed to? Are we getting results that are aligning with our hypothesis? Are we seeing that, okay, our initial hypothesis was that, okay, if we have these 3 criteria, this, and this, and then we usually get a 10 a.m. reversal. In the experimental phase, we do see that across many, many days and many, many trades, that holds up. That hypothesis holds up, where we do see a lot of the time where we have that 3-point criteria, we do get a reversal at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We do get a reversal. Okay, and that's a setup that we're able to profit off of. Great. We analyze that data and we draw that conclusion. It is a potential setup to actually be able to profit off of, that is actually profitable itself. Okay, and you're gonna have a lot more analytics as well when you're backtesting on your FX replay, so it's gonna be very, very helpful to you guys. All right. Next, if let's say it doesn't align, let's say you go and test it and you see it's not profitable. You go and see, okay, seems like it only was valid for today. It's something that I really saw today that looked like it probably works a lot, but when I went and tested in my experiment, in my backtesting, it didn't hold up. We ended up losing more days than winning, and we ended up not making as much compared to how much we're losing. So we end up being unprofitable using the hypothesis that we developed, using that thesis that we developed, that strategy criteria that we developed. Right, your strategy criteria is literally your thesis or your hypothesis for your scientific experiment. So if the backtesting or the experiment doesn't hold up to your hypothesis, the results of that doesn't hold up to your hypothesis and doesn't align with it, then totally fine, even better. Now you have extra data that you could potentially move forward with and add on to a new project, a new experiment, and a new hypothesis. Maybe you see, all right, these 3 criteria don't really work, but usually when actually at 11 a.m. when we do see these other criteria, it ends up working out really well. Okay, it ends up these other criteria are showing some reversals at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and you go and test that project. That's just a random example I just gave, by the way. I never tested any 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. reversals, but the point is, the results from one project might leave you to add on something into another project that you're going to work on to potentially give you a hypothesis where you can test again. And now this time, in hopes that this time it's going to actually follow through and follow along with the hypothesis and show that it is an actual profitable setup to make money off of, and it's actually usable in the market. It's not just a BS fake experiment that you developed off of a fake hypothesis that doesn't really work out that well. Quick little water break. Okay. You always want to make sure, does my experiment's result align with the hypothesis? That's the main point here. All right. You might see if it does, if your first results from your experiment doesn't align with the original hypothesis, then you might see, okay, I usually saw, instead of these 3 criteria, I saw one other new criteria that ended up really playing out really, really well. Let me try that instead of these ones, right? You'll gather a lot more information after you go and view all the other trades and all the other days of price action, right? Your brain is not only focused on those 3 criteria, and subconsciously it's also gathering information from you just watching the chart and gathering data on those 3 criteria. It's also absorbing information to potentially find new patterns that you can add on, right? And if the experiment doesn't hold and align with the original hypothesis, great. Now your brain, your pattern-seeking brain, has new ideas to form a new experiment, a new hypothesis, and that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to keep doing this step-by-step procedure, developing a new hypothesis, making new observations, testing with an experiment, making sure you follow the experiment as you're supposed to, set it up properly, right? Also, I didn't mention this, but the setting up properly and checking all the steps is you following all the rules for backtesting, which is following all the rules for your entire experimentation process throughout the entire phase of your experimental process. Okay, if you, for example, switch up your criteria midway, or add a new criteria midway, or take off a criteria midway because you see it's all useless, whatever, you're messing up your experimental process and you're changing up the strategy midway of your testing, right? Half your data is based off one strategy and half of it is based off a completely different strategy. So you're not really aligning and having proper analysis because you don't have full data on one type of strategy. You change stuff up, you changed your hypothesis midway. We need to keep our hypothesis accurate throughout the entire experimental phase. We need to keep our strategy the same, the rules the same, the entire backtesting session, the entire backtesting period. That's like the trading slang of it, trading way of saying it, right? That's the first was the scientific way and then the trading way. Again, and if you're following and you see everything's lining up, you're following the steps, you're following the rules, you set it up properly, you're backtesting for an accurate amount of data, you're not taking only like 5 trades and saying, oh, it doesn't work, I give up, I'm changing my hypothesis, then shouldn't be doing that, right? Follow all the steps, follow all your checklist, follow all your rules, and make sure you follow the experimental process the way you're supposed to, okay? Again, and if it's working, great. Watch the analytics, see what results you can gather from this. Draw conclusions. If it aligns with the hypothesis and it shows it's a profitable setup, you should have a profitable win rate in risk-reward combination, profitable expected value, great. Test this on the demo market or demo. Test it on a funded account or a live account. See how it performs there. Again, same scenario. When you're testing on a live, make sure you're also following the rules, following the criteria, following the setups. Now you're kind of starting at the experimental phase again. You already have the hypothesis side down, but now you're testing a new experiment with demo market or a funded market or a live environment. Okay, that's your new experiment. Again, is this procedure working? If it's not, make sure you're following all the steps and you're following the setup rules, right? You're not emotionally training. You're not breaking the initial rules that you told yourself you're going to follow for the experiment. You're not breaking the entry conditions or the exit conditions, right? 2 very, very important components. Okay. If you're following those, we go down the yes category. Now we analyze the data and draw conclusions. Most likely, you guys will be profitable at this point because if you're profitable in the past and you have your emotions locked down, you have your psychology locked down, and you've tested everything thoroughly with enough data, it should work in the recent market. There shouldn't be a reason why it doesn't. Okay, there might be very, very rare occasions where the market environment might just change like this right when you start testing it live, but it's very, very, very unlikely. Okay, very, very unlikely. If you test your strategy on recent days and recent trades and recent price action in your initial experimentation phase, in your backtesting phase, it should also work in the newer market, in the upcoming market from the near future. Okay, it should work really well. I've seen it with my students. I've seen it play out really well. I've seen it with myself. Okay. And if it doesn't align, your conclusions don't align with your initial hypothesis, what do we do again? We have new information to build a new hypothesis and experiment a new experiment as well. Okay? And again, always make sure this procedure working part is very, very important. So don't skip over it, right? Make sure you are following all the steps and all the requirements need for the entire setup of the experiment and the rules required to follow your hypothesis. Make sure you're doing that throughout the entire process, because one small mistake could lead you down the rabbit hole of making bad habits and breaking down your rules and mess up the entire experimentation process. Like, you literally got to be robotic with this stuff, guys. Robotic with this procedure. Okay? Treat it like an experiment. Treat it like you're a scientist doing a research project on being profitable in the markets. Treat it like that. Okay? Follow this step-by-step process, right? First, again, we'll do a quick final run through for those of you guys just to kind of engrave it into your brains. First, ask a question, make observations, and do some research, right? Analyze some pattern, watch the price action on your own for a few days up to a few weeks, and start to see your brain will automatically detect some patterns, and you're going to take note of that, whether that be mentally or physically on your computer or on paper. Next, you're going to construct your hypothesis. You're going to build your strategies, rules that you're going to test. Okay, I want to see this, and these three criteria happen, and then I'm going to take my trade because I think when these three happen, I have a more likely chance of price moving up than it moves down, and I can profit off of it. Great. We constructed that. We're going to test that. Next, we're going to test that as an experiment. How are we going to do an experiment? Through backtesting. Backtesting on the previous at least 50 trades, 60 to 80 ideal, or 60 to 80 is required, okay? And then 100 plus minimum. We're going to test it on that amount of trades. That's going to be our experiment. We're going to see, okay, is our procedure working? Is it not? Okay, if it's not, what are we doing wrong? Make sure we followed all the steps, all the rules, all the checklists, all the entries and exit criteria for our specific strategy. If we messed up, okay, we need to redo it. Okay, we need to fix our mistakes that we made on not following the entries and not following the exits. Because if we don't follow the rules, we're trading with a completely different strategy. We need to trade the entire experiment, the entire backtesting session with the same rules and same entries and exit criteria. Now, if we do follow the exact entry and exit criteria and take over 100 trades, great. We move on to the yes category. We go down to see the analyzing the data and drawing conclusions from our specific testing and experimentation and our back testing. When we analyze the data, does it hold up to be profitable? It most likely should be, but there may be cases where it shouldn't. Okay, if it is aligning with our initial hypothesis, we're getting the results that we want. We are getting the profitable value, profitable data, profitable expected value, okay, combination of win rate and risk to reward. Then what are we going to do? Move on to the next part. We're going to use the strategy in a demo in a live or a funded or a live environment and apply it. And again, we're back to here, okay, when we test it live, where we want to see, okay, is the procedure working? If it's not giving us the same results, if we're not getting things that we're supposed to get, then we make sure, are we following the steps that we're supposed to follow, and did we set it up properly? Okay, are we not making any mistakes emotionally, or are we actually making mistakes? Okay, we want to take into account of that. It might sound easy to you guys, but it's not as easy as it sounds. It's simple, but it's not easy. When you guys go and do it, you realize how dreadful the work is. You're going to get exhausted. You're going to feel like, I don't want to do this. I don't need to journal. I don't need to reflect. I don't need to look back and see if everything's going right out. I think I got it now. I think I figured it out. And then before you know it, you blow your funded accounts or you blow your live account and you're like, I don't know what I did wrong. I thought I had it. I was doing it right. What happened? But then you don't realize Oral told you, follow this entire step-by-step scientific method like you're a high schooler doing a scientific project, but for trading, right? A scientist in the markets, bro. You got to cook up these markets. That's a chef, not a scientist. Sorry. But we said if the results align with it, test it live, okay? Test it on demo and then test it live or funded. Make sure it works. Follow the rules and checklists, entry and exit criteria should be going this way. And if it goes down here where it doesn't align with the hypothesis, you're going to go back here. You're going to make a new hypothesis. You're going to test that again in the back testing. You're going to make sure you're following out all the rules and all the entries and exit criteria. You're going to not FOMO, not take random trades and not switch up your strategy. And then you should be going down the yes category. And you keep doing this until you get to here. Once you get to here, you get to the communicate results, which is not just communicate results. It's test your strategy in a live and demo and funded environment. Okay, again, back to here. Then we test it. Again, test it in the live market. Okay, and ideally, once we get back down to here, we should end up here. And this is going to be profitability, payouts, consistent profitability. That's what it should be. So you're going to do this entire process in your entire trading career. This is going to be what you want it to look like if you guys want to make the least amount of mistakes with the least amount of obstacles with the most efficient way to profitability. Okay, this entire process. Master this. Take a screenshot if you have to. Keep it in your notes or write down on a separate page on your notes or whatever, writing or typed about how you're going to apply this step-by-step checklist, okay? Using the information I told you and applying this specific concept as well. Okay, very, very helpful concept. I don't know why a lot of people don't talk about it, but it's literally like the scientific method. Learning how to build a profitable strategy is the same, not even just a profitable strategy, but turning profitable is the same as the scientific method. I never framed it like this until after I realized this is exactly what I did, right? When I was finding my strategy, I took bits and pieces from everything I understood. I asked questions. I found out based on how I like to trade, did some research. I did some random trades and I found out, okay, I like trading with these types of trades. I do good when I take these kinds of trades. When I wait for momentum, when I wait for trends, I don't like taking mean reversion and consolidation trades or very extended trades. I do like it actually, but I don't perform well in it, so I'm not going to do it. I do best with the one-to-one consistency. So let me build a strategy on momentum, trend, and consistent profits and test that out. Tested it out, right, throughout my entire back testing and my live testing and demo testing and forward testing. Okay, made sure my procedure was working. I didn't really make any mistakes because this was around like 2.5 years into my trading journey. I didn't really make any mistakes, so I fortunately didn't have to go through this period where I had to go back test again. So it went down this category. Okay, so I analyzed the data of my results. I figured out, okay, I like to trade whenever it's only in the first 45 minutes. I don't like to trade in the whatnot. So I kind of refined my approach. I refined my data. I based on what information I got, optimized my information, and made my strategy the most optimal way it could be. Okay, and I found that luckily I didn't go down this route. Okay, fortunately I didn't have to go down this route, but I did kind of go down this route for my entire first 2.5 years of my trading journey. Or actually first 3 years of my trading journey, but we could say first 2.5 years because that's when before I started trading momentum. So I did go down this category, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know about the structure. So once I figured out about the momentum strategy and I got to the point in time where I learned how to trade with momentum and I was at that level of thinking in terms of trading, I understood this entire process without actually knowing this is a process, applying the process. Okay, so I ended up going down this route. My results aligned with my hypothesis. I was able to get profitable results trading with momentum, trend following, with the criteria that I created around the strategy I like to trade and the style I like to trade. And then I used that in live and funded environment, and the results were true. The results were valid, right? I came here, right? Live and demo and funded and live environment comes back to here. Testing with the experiment, right? Making sure the procedure is working, make sure I'm following my rules. I'm not jumping in with FOMO or emotions and randomly changing a criteria or anything like that. So I don't go down this way. I go down this way. I look at the data. I look at my results. I see how I'm performing on funded and on live environment, and I see I'm doing good. Great. My results are aligning with my hypothesis. Great. This now becomes profitability and payouts. There we go. That's going to be the end result. I should have probably implemented 2 diagrams, but didn't really know how to put this into 2 diagrams. So the first diagram is starting from this entire step all the way down, and then it comes back to experiment when you test it in a live and demo and funded environment or funded environment. And you go down this entire process again and come down here. And if you go down here, you do the same thing again here. Or if you go down here, you go back here and you come down here, right? It's all about coming back to here twice, right? Down here, like this again, back to there, back to here. It's just profitability now. The second time is profitability. The first time it's like, oh, where's the eraser? This dot is pissing me off. There we go. Nice. The first time around, this is like demo trading, or basically whatever you consider this, demo, live, or funded, and you do the entire process and should be profitability at the end. Okay, when you go down this side and then left, not right, but left. All right, hopefully that makes sense, y'all. Remember, scientific method is no different than building your profitability in trading. Okay, it's the same process. You guys got this shit, apply this shit to your strategy, to your trades, basically what the entire A through Z trading blueprint teaches you, but in breakdown, in-depth format. And this sums up the exact process you guys have to take to get you to profitability with the A through Z format, with the A through Z information, right? Building a strategy. I teach you guys my strategy in case you guys want to learn how I trade too and implement that. Maybe you guys get some ideas off of my strategy, or you guys like trading my strategy, you want to build off of it. You guys can use that as your background research or ask a question. Maybe you're like, I'm kind of a trend following trader. I kind of like trading your trend with trends. And then you do some background research. You see, oh, RL trades. He's profitable with a momentum trend following strategy. Maybe I can kind of get some ideas of how he's able to make it work with momentum and trend following, and adapt that and implement that into my approach. And let me construct my own hypothesis and test it myself. Make sure I'm following the rules when I'm testing, and then analyze the data, and then see that it aligns with the hypothesis, and then test it again live, and then see that it works again, and then analyze that data, see that I'm profitable on live, and then I see I'm profitable and I get payouts. That's the process you guys are going to take. Okay, that's just an example of one process. Some of you guys might not like trading my style, which is totally okay. Totally okay. Not everybody's going to enjoy trading the same style that I like to trade, right? I like to trade consistent one-to-ones or low, not crazy home runners with a high win rate with a trend following system. And I like trading around momentum. So that's what I built it around. And it took time for you to figure that out. You guys aren't going to figure that out overnight. If you do figure it out on your first one, be grateful, because you didn't have to go through a bunch of losses to figure out whatever you want. You got to hit off your first style of trading. Okay? That's great. But for those of you who have tried a bunch of stuff and don't know what works for you, get rid of your charts, make it plain and simple, and let your brain kind of play around with trades and see what it likes to trade. Right? I'm being honest with y'all. When I built my momentum strategy, I was taking a shit ton of trades, like 30, 40 trades a day, because I scrapped everything from my charts and I was tired of jumping strategy and trying to make random strategies work. And I'm like, look, what do I like to trade? Let me just let my brain take random trades, not random, but trades kind of aligning with where I think it's a valid trade to take. And over time, after a few weeks, I'll see what performs well and what doesn't perform well, and I'll scrap the trades that don't perform well and build a strategy around the trades that perform well. And I found that most of the time, the trades that performed well were around momentum and trend following, and that's exactly what I did. I did my observation. I kind of asked a question, and I also did my own research and my initial testing. Okay, you could honestly run this whole process on that initial part where I entered random trades and I analyzed the results, and then I found that most of my trades that were good aligned with momentum, and I built strategy around that. You could consider that whole process aligning with this too, right? But I'm telling y'all, understand this process. You guys will be so far ahead. I wish I knew all this information when I started. If you guys can just understand this process, you guys will be so far ahead. I'm telling you guys, just understand this, please, for the love of God. So hopefully you guys understood that scientific method, maxing, and apply that to your own trading styles. All right, it's gonna look messy initially, but it's gonna pay off. Okay, trading isn't something perfect, like some aesthetic type of thing you see on like social media. It may get to that point later on. It may be simple and like clean and not and very like, I don't know what the right word is, but very simple. Okay, but initially it's gonna be dirty. You're gonna have to put in a lot of work. It's gonna look messy. You're gonna have a lot of data. You're gonna have to optimize, figure out how to refine, and improve the data. And potentially, when you're going down this way, right, you're gonna have to go retest your own hypothesis again, maybe multiple times, until you get one that works. But you gotta remember, when you get one that works, that's the end goal we're looking for. And if you don't hit it on the first time, that's okay. No one wins on their first try, and the ones that do, they're honestly on a bad position, because when they lose, they don't know how to handle it because they never went through the losses. They won on their first try. So when they lose, it could cause them to suffer a lot, because now they have more to lose since they went up a lot. Now they have a lot more to lose. But those who are just losing, don't have much to lose. You're going back to where you initially started. You didn't make a shit ton of progress and just come back to zero. Okay? You're still at your unprofitable stage. So if you're not getting quote unquote lucky, don't be so hard on yourself. Okay, that's good. That's better than getting lucky, because now you can learn and build your skills, and so it can maintain for the long run, not just randomly disappear and you not knowing why. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to y'all. Hopefully you guys learned a good amount of information from this video. Scientific method. That's all I gotta say. Apply that to your trades. You guys got the shit. Take care, y'all.